Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another lesson. Tonight, we hope to conclude chapter 13. Just to touch upon our discussion from last time, we have discovered that the idea of a Beinoni, a middle person, will never sin in his garments, thought, speech, and action. However, internally, the two souls that exist within him are constantly and continuously fight for control. The Beinoni will receive the help, the support from God to achieve that success without sinning, without giving in to the animal soul. That's why, so it answers two questions that we had. The first question is, why do they make a person take an oath or swear before he's born, the soul, that you should consider yourself like a wicked person, even if everybody tells you you're a tzaddik? And the answer is, it's not about getting depressed, it is about reminding us that the fact that a person looks like a tzaddik and acts like a tzaddik because he always speaks and acts and thinks properly, it is not necessarily a proof that he's a tzaddik, because could be that he has an animal soul that's alive and kicking. It's at this point in a sleep mode. Therefore, he should consider himself a Beinoni, a Rash, like a Rasha, Rasha, like a Rasha, meaning a Beinoni. That explains another question about Rabbah. Rabbah was a holy man that the devil, the devil, when he was Satan sent to take his soul, by the time his life ended, was unable, was unsuccessful. He had to trick Rabbah because he was studying so much. And by the way, the commentators say, what do you mean he's studying so much? God, he could have taken him while he was asleep. He didn't study continuously 24/7. What about going to the bathroom? What about eating and drinking? And the answer is, as a man who is dedicated to Torah study, all his time that's available for him to study Torah, it makes the person study Torah continuously without a stop. So, if I study Torah all the time and I serve God all the time, when I go to sleep, I'm still serving God and I'm considered like someone who studied Torah. When I use the bathroom, when I go to eat, when I sleep. Therefore, the Satan had no control over the rabbi, because he studied every given moment in his day. And therefore, the nighttime, sleeping, getting up, taking a shower, eating, socializing for God's sake was considered serving God, and therefore he was a complete tzaddik. Yet he calls himself a Beinoni, and the reason is because he wanted to remind his surrounding the fact that you study Torah all day and do the right thing is not necessarily that you're a tzaddik. The difference between a Beinoni and a tzaddik is a tzaddik has gone. The evil inclination is gone. The Beinoni still has it. He is able to tell them, be careful, even if you see someone who never sinned, he might still be a Beinoni and not a tzaddik. Now the rabbi is getting into a whole new topic. And I started speaking on that about this last week. The idea of being truthful is the foundation of the universe, the foundation of the Torah, and the foundation of us serving God. There are three, as we'll discover, three types of truth. What are the three types of truth? Anybody remember? An absolute truth, relative truth or conditional truth, and Jacob's truth. Okay, let's just talk a little bit about truth. First, we need to understand that real truth is something that exists under all conditions in all times. If I say this is, I am 20 years old, it is a conditional truth, because in a moment or in a day, I'll be 20 years in a day already. It's not true. Yesterday or a year ago, I wasn't 20. Truth has to penetrate throughout time, space, and bodies, and that's only with God. There is one other entity God gave us, which is the Torah. It's called the Torah of truth, Torah Temet. The one who is credited with Torah is Jacob. And it's so fascinating because I discovered a lot about truth when I was preparing this last week, because that's the stories of the portion that we study. So I want to talk a little bit about truth. The Torah is, from beginning till the end, is all about truth. If you look in the first verse of the Torah, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim. After Bereshit bara, the third letter ends up, the last letter for the third, fourth, and fifth will make the word emet. Elokim bara, I'm sorry, Bereshit is the second word. Bara, Beit Reish Aleph is Aleph. Elokim, it's Mem. Et, the. Aleph Taf is, Aleph Mem Taf is the word Emet, truth in Hebrew. The next few words in the same verse, it will be doubled twice, the word Emet in the first one. That's number one. Number two, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'haaretz hayta tohu. In the creation of the universe, I believe there are 7 times, I may be wrong, but that's what I remember. 7 times the word emet spells out as last word of consecutive 3 words. And in one verse, it will appear twice, which is very unusual. The other thing, you're a mathematician, so that's in your alley. The Torah begins with letter Bet. Why doesn't start with letter Aleph? Anybody knows? So here is one of reasons. Because in numerology, in Kabbalah, the following, what I tell you is just plain Kabbalah. The number that is associated with truth is number 9. 9 is the complete truth. One of the ways to see it is that number 9, as many as you multiply it, it will always come out to 9, right? Because you add the numbers. Do you understand that? Mm-hmm. 9 plus 9 times 2 is how much? 18. 1 and 8 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. 2 and 7 is 9. 9 times 4 is 45. Huh? 36. 9. I want to make sure you listen. 9 times 5, and it keeps going and going. It always will come up to 9. So he's already. If you take from the letter bet, and you count the next 3 letters, you will get 9. The next 3 letters, you'll get 9. Then the entire alphabet, you'll get 9. Let me explain. Bet is 2, right? Gimel, Dalet. Gimel is 3. Dalet is 4. So how much is it? 9. Bet and Gimel is 5, and Dalet is 4. It's 9. Let's continue. Hey, Vav, Zayin. Hey is 5. Vav is 6. Together it's 11. Zayin is 7. 11 and 7 is 18. 18 is 1 and 8. 1 and 8 is 9. Right? Or 18 is divided by 2 is 9. Chet, Tet, Yud. Chet is 8. Tet is 9. How much is 8 and 9? 17? Huh? And Yud is another 10. Right? It's 27. 2 and 7 is 9. Kaf, Lamed, Mem. Kaf is 20. Lamed is 30. Is 50. Mem is 60. Mem is 40, right? Chaf is 20. Lamed is 30. Mem is 40. 20 and 30 is 50. Plus 40 is 90. 90 is 9. Nun, Samach, Ayin. I'm sorry. I said Chaf, Lamed, Mem. Nun is 50, Samach is 60, Ayin is 70. So 50 and 60 is how much? 11. Ayin is 70. It's 18. Ali, does it make sense? So the reason the Torah begins with bet is because if you jump three letters in the alphabet, you always get 9. Now, just a minute. Now, what's the opposite, the polar opposite of 9? The real number that represents lie. That number is 6. Okay, 6. Why? Because it's the opposite of 9, right? It's the only number. Now, if I'm going to start the Torah from the letter Aleph and I count 3 letters, it will come out to 6. Now let's see. And now that excites you, huh? Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3. How much is it the total? 6. 6. Daled, Hey, Vav. Daled is 4. Hey is 5, and Vav is 6. So 4 and 5 is 9. Plus 6 is 15. 1 and 5 makes a 6. Zayin, Chet, Tet. 7, 8, 9. 7 and 8 is 15. And 9 is 24. 24 makes 2 and 4 is 6. Yud, Chaf, and Lamed. Yud is 10, Chaf is 20, and Lamed is 30. It's a 60. It's 6. Okay, so it has to do with the words, but we're not going to go that far. All I'm saying to you is that the idea the Torah to begin with Bet and not with Aleph, because it wants to correspond to the number that the entire alphabet will always come up. If you multiply by 3, you always get 9, 9, 9. If you were to start with Aleph, you always get 6, 6, 6, which 6 is the opposite of 9. Now, we're not done yet. And that's something I showed last night, and I was shocked nobody heard that, because I was raised that way. They say in Hebrew, Lasheker en raglaim. The lies has no legs. They would tell us as children, don't lie, because remember, Lasheker en raglaim. It's not you won't be able to run away from it. We will catch it. We will catch the lie if you tell a lie. Sheker, lie, is made out of 3 letters, Shin, Kuf, Reish. Shin, I told you, has no legs. It's sitting on the bottom. Kuf is 1 leg that extends, and Reish is made out with 1 leg. So it has no 2 legs to sit solidly, meaning it's very shaky. Emet, Aleph, Mem, and Taf. Aleph has 2 legs. Aleph has 2 legs. Mem also has 2 parts. It has a bottom, but then at the other side it comes, right? Right? Mem is like that, and then you have 1 that's coming out. So you have a space in between. You have 2. And Taf is also the same way, with a solid ground. Meaning both Aleph and Taf also has a very solid base on one of them. Because the Emet, when you tell the truth, it stands still. It has a good foundation. The Torah tells us that the universe was created by 3 foundations. One of them is the truth, Emet. The second is peace. And another one is judgment, or judgment. One more story about Emet, about the truth. Ali, any questions so far? What don't you like until now?
I like these stories, man.
Okay. So actually, there are 2 stories. The first one is a short one. There was a man who was seeking truth. He decided he wants to be. Oh, and I have another story. There was a man who was seeking the truth. He decided to travel as far as he can until he finds the truth. And then as he was traveling and searching, finally he came to a land where he was told, this here is the hallway or the atmosphere of truth. And he entered that hallway and he sees a lot of candles, millions of candles. And he asks somebody in that place, what are the candles? And the man says to him, this is the world of truth. And the way we tell about the truth is every person has a candle. And the candle has oil. It's a clear glass, like a yahrzeit candle of 7 days. The more lies you say, the less oil you have in the glass. So he decided to go and check on his friends, his ex-wife, his ex-partner, his teachers, and see how much lies they say. So he goes around and he sees that they have very little oil, meaning they lied a lot. Then he says, let me check on my own candle.
There's no oil.
And there is very little oil. So he looks around, he decided that he needs to add some more oil to his candle. So he looks around, he sees nobody. He turns to the side and he sees a glass and he's about to this. As he's about to pour oil, somebody grabs him by the hand. He says, remember, this is the world of truth. You cannot fake, you cannot make a lie, you cannot act in this way. And the point of the story is, it's very easy to tell that I want to tell the truth and I always tell the truth, but it's very hard to act on it. The next point before the story, the next point is, and that I heard last week, if you go and visit cemetery, you find a lot of inscriptions of greatness for the people who are resting in cemetery. Great husband, loved his children, came early to synagogue, supported many families, gave tzedakah. You won't find any grave site that the marker reads, always told the truth and never lied. You won't find it. And the reason is, and if you find it, it's a lie. And the reason is, the Torah tells us that someone who refrains from lying in their entire life will not die. So if someone never told a lie, he wouldn't be in the cemetery. You won't find it.
Let's see who's going to live forever. How do you say?
And that brings me to the final story. What?
How do you say again lie in Hebrew?
Sheker.
Sheker.
No, shikar and sheker are two separate things. The following is from the Midrash. The Midrash tells us there was a man by the name of Rav Tevet, or some say Rav Tavyomi. I'm going to use Rav Tavyomi because he was a famous man, but could be it's another name. He said about himself that he had never deviated from the truth. He always told the truth. And the Gemara said that one day he traveled to a town called Kushta. Kushta, there is a town in Hebrew, in Turkey, called Kushta. But it's not that town, I don't think so. Because the word Kushta in Aramaic means truth. He traveled to a town called Kushta, meaning the town of truth. And he found a wife, and he discovered that in that town, no one lies. Nobody lies. So he found a wife from the town of Kushta, and he married her. And they had children. One day, the neighbor knocks on the door and asks, can I talk to your wife? Can I see your wife for a moment? She was taking a shower. He wasn't comfortable telling the truth that she was taking a shower. So he said, she's not available.
Which is also true.
Which is, you would say, that's the point of the story. And the next morning, his two little children were dead. They died. So the townspeople came to Rav Tavyomi and say, what happened that you brought death to us? We have never had babies die. We've never had someone die in an unnatural way. How come they died? And he said, the only thing I can think of is last night I did not tell the truth. So they said to him, please leave our town. We don't want you here because you're not bringing a blessing. And they kicked him out. A lot can be said about this discussion, and tonight I looked into some commentaries. I found some fascinating commentaries. But the point of the story is that the truth, if someone sticks to the truth wholeheartedly, he is connected to God because God's signature is truth. And therefore, truth is the foundation of the universe. And God's gift to us is truth through the Torah. As soon as we stick to the Torah and follow the Torah, we connect with the truth. Now, having said that, let's discuss the dilemma the Rebbe wants to address. And the dilemma the Rebbe wants to address is very simple. For a tzaddik, he will not have a desire to sin. So he serves God, he keeps Shabbat, he keeps kosher, he does not cheat in business, always, continuous. It's called truth. Because there are no changes, there is no deviation. For a Beinoni, we're not sure. Today he didn't sin because he overcame his evil. But tomorrow he might sin. And it's all conditional. We're not sure. So perhaps his service of God is, so to say, not true. It's fake because it's conditional. And that's the Rebbe's problem. Ali, do you understand that? Thank you very much. The Rebbe will go and address this point and share with us that when we talk about Jacob is the man of truth, he is accredited and named, the temple is named after Jacob. He had been true throughout many levels, even levels, low levels and high levels. In other words, truth, everyone has their own truth. Now, not in the negative connotation, I have my own truth and I can make the truth the way I like. But truth depends on the level that we are dealing with. And for a Beinoni, the fact that he is able to connect with God whenever he wants, even though we're not sure if it's going to always be there or may not, but at the moment that he's connecting, it's a complete truth. And the Rebbe goes out of his way to say, I testify that this is truth. The Rebbe does not ever say, I testify, except in this one. In other words, the Rebbe wants to make sure that a Beinoni who serves God, even though it's conditional, we don't know if he's going to be that connected to God tomorrow, yet his connection to God today is a complete connection, just like a tzaddik. Why is it important? Because we have many people who say, you come to synagogue, you're a hypocrite. Because you come to synagogue on Shabbat, you pray to God, you study Torah, and then you go and you eat non-kosher steak, and then you cheat in business, and then you tell people that all kinds of things that contradict what you just did before. The Rebbe wants to share with us the idea that as long as I'm connected now with God, it is a complete connection. The fact that tomorrow or later I will not be connected with God has nothing to do with the moment. And if a day later I reconnect, it's a complete connection.
Is that for anybody or
Every person. The Rabbi is using the Beinoni as a metaphor. The idea is that if this morning I was a bad boy, I did not serve God, should not affect what I do an hour later. And if I an hour later am serving God, don't call it fake. Don't call it not true, because the truth depends on the level where you find yourself. And if at this moment I want to serve God and I want to be good, when it comes to human being, it's very difficult to expect that if I told my wife that she is a lousy person and she don't know how to cook, and then for lunchtime I come home and I say, oh, this lunch tastes so good, you are the best cook in the world, I'm not sure she'll be receiving it in the proper way. And she will say to me, you're faking it, right? And that's what you told me in the morning. Now you change your mind. What's going on? If you can assume that, if you can imagine that I'm going to repeat this kind of behavior in a few days, then my wife will, at best, even if she loves me very much, she would know that she would tell me that I'm a faker. I can't take any word you say. When it comes to God, it's a different story because it's two souls, godly and animal soul. So when we do a mitzvah, it's the godly soul. When you sin, it's the animal soul. So therefore, anytime we do good, take it for what it is, doing good, completely good. And therefore, it should be credited and should be treated in complete truth. And that's the point the rabbi wants to make at the end of this chapter. Yes?
I have a question. Telling the truth all the time cannot be offensive?
Explain yourself.
Okay. Somebody says, don't I look beautiful today? No, you're baraki. I mean, no, honestly, there are situations where if you're truthful, you may offend the person. So how do you act that way, Rabbi?
A very good question. So here is my answer. Remember, I just told you the story of the rabbi that came to a town called Kushta?
Yes.
Kushta is truth, emet. Emet in Aramaic is Kushta. Tavyomi or tavet is from the word of good. And one commentator, I just saw it tonight, explains that the story is actually a metaphor on what's the right behavior. Those people in that town, they only told the truth, but perhaps they weren't respectful of one another, and they were unable to keep their marriage together, and they didn't have a good life. Rav Tavyome, who says, I'll never lie, remember I told you, the story, the Talmud starts with his statement, I never lied. Yet we find that he didn't feel comfortable to tell the truth to the neighbor, and he said, she's not here. He said, she's not here, not she's not available. He said, she's not here, which is appropriate for us to say. We don't have to share all the time, especially between us and wife. The reason they kicked him out is not a punishing him, but actually a great trait to attribute it to Rav Tavyomi, because he wants to teach us that in our universe, the idea of truth, complete 100% truth, is impossible.
Except for Torah and God.
Except for God. And that's the difference between a tzaddik and a benoni. And that's actually the core of our discussion. What the rabbi wants to tell us, it is a complete truth as long as you try to achieve peace and serve God. If I tell my wife she does not look good, I am not serving God. I am creating a rift between me and my wife. So I'm sure this is a lie anyway, but even if it was the truth, I wouldn't, it's inappropriate. That explains that when God was looking to create the universe, he consulted the truth. Truth said, Emes said, don't create the universe because man is full of lies. Then he went and consulted din, judgment or rules. Judgment said, don't create it, because he does not follow rules. Man is full of faults. He never obeyed the law. He never followed the laws. And then he asked peace, shalom, whether he should create the universe. And peace said, create him, because even though they have a lot of disagreements, but they always men can come to an agreement and make peace. What does God do? God took the truth and threw it to the ground. That's a medrash. He threw the truth to the ground. And he says, now it's me and peace against judgment. So it's two against one, so you're going to create the universe. That's the medrash. The Kabbalistic interpretation here is that whenever you have two opposing interests, you have the truth or you have peace, peace always prevails. You throw to the ground the truth. So if someone asks me something and telling him the truth will offend the person or reveal something about somebody else, I'm allowed to deviate from the truth. But that's not the, And that's the point that you're making. I'm not going to call it a white lie. We had this discussion about Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. Bet Shammai says that when you go to a wedding, if you have to tell the groom how beautiful the bride is, but if she's not, you're not allowed to lie. You're not allowed to say she's beautiful. You don't say anything. And Bet Hillel said, no, you always say Kala na v'chasuda. Bet Hillel says, you go to a wedding, you sing to him, she's the most beautiful and kind. I've never seen such a beautiful person. She should run for the pigeon and beauty pageant, and she probably will make it up to the top. But Shammai says to Bet Hillel, and what if she's missing a leg, or if she is missing an ear? How can you say that? It's in other words, Bet Shammai turned to Bet Hillel and says, there are things that are obvious sometimes. You can't lie to their face. And Bet Hillel says, I'm sorry. The goal is to bring him, to make him love his wife. And for that, we're allowed to deviate from the truth. And the rule is with Bet Hillel, by the way. We're going to talk in JLI in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. We're going to discuss this idea of peace and kindness, how they harmonize. But for this discussion right now, the idea of peace and the idea of truth sometimes can be opposing each other. And in our universe, peace comes first. However, Torah is truth. Serving God must be amidst truth. And the dilemma the rabbi had is the Beinoni is not serving God with great total truth, because truth means that today, tomorrow, next year, he is in the same level, in the same kind of behavior. And that's not true for a Beinoni, because a Beinoni is painting a challenge. Every day it's a challenge anew. Says the Rebbe, there is something called the truth of Jacob, which is right now. Right now, the truth is that he is devoted to God. Therefore, it is complete truth or truthful service of God. Tomorrow, he will not, maybe not, but that's tomorrow. And after that, he'll reconnect, and that connection will be a complete connection. And that's what the rabbi is going to talk about. There is the idea of Jacob, but before we get there, I just want to share it verbally. In the temple, and last week I came armed with books, but this week I for some reason I failed. But if you look in the description of the building of the tabernacle, which is the temporary temple in the desert, there were 20 beams. Each beam was about 3 feet long. 20 beams on the right side, 20 beam on the left, 10 on one, and the not 10, 10, and another, and on the other side, by the entrance there was curtains. The important point is that in order for the beams to stand together and straight, not only they had sockets in the ground that they had to be fitted into those sockets, but there were a wooden beam that ran across, and there was loops that were applied to each beam, and the stick, so to say, would have to go through all of them. But there was a third, so there was one stick that ran across on top, one on the bottom, but in the middle, so they were visible from inside. You can see those sticks, and there are diagrams in our Chumash, in our book. You can find it. But there was another one in the middle that they penetrated the middle of the beams. They made a hole in the beam, and they ran one stick, one round stick. Let's say a 2x4 that ran across. The problem, the idea is that that beam had to go straight, and miraculously, I don't know how to explain that, it would bend and go to the left, and then bend again and go to. So in other words, there were two beams on top and bottom of each one of the walls, but there was a third beam right in the middle that was only a single beam that will go around. Now, whenever they took it apart, when they moved around, they would pull the beam and the beam will come out. In other words, it was kind of flexible in a way that it can be bent, which is impossible to explain naturally. It refers to, the Talmud calls it, this is the type of Jacob. This represents Jacob. And the idea the rabbi is going to apply is that the Jacob would accommodate all of the beams, right, left, in the middle, it doesn't matter, because it's a single beam, because truth depends on the level where you are. So if right now I'm committed to God, I'm holy for God, and it's the complete truth, and regardless of what happens later. Here it is. Let's start. We are I would like to start from the bottom of page 203. Such a Benoni is constantly ablaze with the love of God, and consequently his desire for evil is always dominant, as explained. Therefore, the absence of any evil desire did not conclusively prove to Rabbah that he was a tzaddik. It was still possible for him to maintain that he was a Benoni who prays all day long. This is answering Rabbah's dilemma, the issue, when he says he's like a Benoni. What emerges from all that has been said is that even during prayer, when the Benoni succeeds in arousing his love of God and rendering the evil dormant, his divine soul is merely prevailed over his animal soul, but has not vanquished it, for which reason it is possible for this state to cease after prayer. Therefore, the Benoni's level of divine service is not considered truthful when compared to the service of a tzaddik, for truth implies continuity and consistency. And that's the point the rabbi is asking. The Alter Rebbe goes on to explain that nevertheless, the Benoni's love relative to his standing is considered a true form of service. Now, here is the text from the rabbi. Now, this aforementioned love attained by Benoni at the time of prayer by virtue of the temporary preponderance of the divine soul over the animal soul, etc., when compared to the standard of the tzaddikim, righteous men, who serve God in perfect truth, in the truest manner of truth, this love is not called true service at all. Why? Since it passes and disappears after prayer. Where is it written? In other words, during prayer, the animal soul is asleep, but once it goes to work, the animal soul is full awake and fights for control. Where it is written, the language, literally the lip of truth, shall be established forever, but the tongue of falsehood is only momentary. In other words, I can be telling you the truth, but if it's only momentarily, it's considered a lie or not the truth. Truth is what I tell you should apply all the time. And I think I shared with you regarding a mikveh, live water needs to have true water, and they are, if a river or a body of water has water for at least 7 years, if it sees to any pond that will dry out once in 7 years, it's not considered live because the truth is gone from that. It's false.
But the 8th year is okay?
At 8 years, yes. Why? Because 7 is a full cycle, right? You have sabbatical every 7 years. 7 is a complete cycle, right? After Shabbat, you start Yom Rishon, Sunday again. Same is about years.
Okay.
Thus, the term truth refers to something immutable. The temporary and passing are not considered truth. The same applies here as well. Since the Beinoni's love of God is felt only during prayer and disappears afterwards, it does not measure up to the truest sense of truth, the perfect truth attained by a tzaddikim. Says the Rebbe, nevertheless, in relation to the rank of the Beinoni, this level of love is regarded as a truly perfect service in terms of the level of truth, that is, the level of Beinonim. For a Beinoni, this is a complete truth, says Rebbe, in each man, relative to his standing in the category of the Beinonim. For, as mentioned earlier, the rank of Beinoni is subdivided into many levels. It is a complete truth. So when I want to know what is truth for me, when I want to know what kind of relationship I have with God, I do not compare myself with my master, with my teacher, with my rabbi, or with my Rebbe. I compare myself to myself. And that's a very important point. We should not be comparing ourselves to others. Everyone has their level of service of God, as long as they are trying their best. The moment they are involved in serving God, it is the complete truth. And no matter how greater the person sitting next to them.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
how does one compare to oneself?
Very good. Very good point. I was about to skip a story, and because of the question, I'm going to share the story. But we have to finish the chapter today. So the story is told a few times. Reb Zusha of Anipoli. Anipoli is a town in Ukraine, I believe. Reb Zusha was the rabbi there, very, very famous man, very beloved man by anyone who met him. He used to say that when he's going to go to heaven, they're going to say to him, Zusha, why weren't you like Jacob? You know, Jacob had a father-in-law, an evil man. Jacob had a brother that wanted to murder him, yet he was standing up at night and studying Torah. You go to bed comfortably and you sleep and you're not studying Torah. How come you didn't behave like Jacob? And you would say, sorry, I did not have the relationship with God the way Jacob had. Jacob spoke to God. He had dreams about angels. I'd never had dreams like that. So they would say, oh, let's skip few generations. Let's say you cannot be like Moses, but the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, you master. How come you're not like him? And you'd say the same thing. Baal Shem Tov used to go to the forest, and Elijah the prophet would come and talk to him. When was the last time Elijah came to talk to me? And the Reb Zusha would go through and compare. You would say, when they would ask me, how come you're not like this? How come you're not like that? I would say, he says, I'm not worried about those questions. But then they would say to me, Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? They would show me myself the way they imagined or they expected or they were hoping for. And they say, this is what we wanted, and look where you are. Why weren't you the Zusha that we were hoping for? And that's a question I wouldn't have an answer. That's the only question I'm worried about. Do you understand that? The point?
Yes, I do.
Let me now answer the question. This week we're going to address how do we know our mission in life. This is literally this week's discussion in JLI, but very briefly, and it's a little bit different than the way we're going to address it at JLI, is that we need to realize that there is a purpose to every talent God gave us. There is a purpose to every person in our life, and there is a purpose for every day God gave us. It doesn't matter if I am sick. It doesn't matter if I'm poor. It doesn't matter if I'm married or not. It doesn't matter if I have children or not. This is totally irrelevant. What is relevant is take what God is giving you today and see how do you elevate it to make something good out of it. So if I have a spouse, how do I connect with my spouse? How do I inspire? How do I learn from my spouse? If I go to work, how do I find the work to be meaningful and beautifying the universe? How do I impact another employee? If I am retired, how do I volunteer? How do I connect with people? Every aspect of our life as a Jew must be for a purpose. There is no extra days. There is no extra talent, and there are no extra people in our life. Everything is meant for a purpose. And therefore, we need to take stock. At the end of the night, at the day, every night, as a Chassid, before we say bedtime Shema, we go through the day. What have I done? Did I raise my voice? Did I waste time? Did I connect with people? Could I have done something better? And hopefully the next day will be better. There is always a chance to fix. That's why we have Yom Kippur. That's why you have Teshuvah, to repent. But the idea is that we need to understand that every moment is there for a purpose. Does that help you?
Yes.
Good. Says the Rebbe, the love to which they possess only during prayer, I term this idea, the Rebbe never says that, I term the language of truth which shall be established forever. That is, the love is true and permanent, though manifest only during prayer. Why? Since the divine soul has the power to reawaken this love constantly, whenever it gathers strength during prayers, day after day, by means of the spiritual preparation appropriate to each soul's quality and rank, the higher the level of the soul, the less preparation it requires to awaken his love of God. Regardless, every soul has the capacity to arouse its love to God during prayer, and therefore it is the truth. Let's continue reading because I want to finish today. The Beinoni's love of God is thus constant, since it is either in an active revealed state or is in potential, and can be revealed at any moment throughout the day. For as mentioned earlier, every Beinoni has the potential to attain the level of praying the whole day long. One difficulty yet remains. How is it possible for the same level of service to be considered untrue by the standards of tzaddikim and true with regards to Beinonim? Is truth not absolute? The matter is now explained as follows. The Rabbi is going to address the conflict between a Beinoni and a tzaddik, that by a tzaddik's level, the Beinoni's truth is not true. The quality of truth is to be found on every level. In each, truth means the essence and core of that level. That is, truth is defined as that which agrees with the essence of that particular level where it is measured. Since this is so in all the myriad levels of the spiritual worlds, from the very highest to the very lowest, and since the lowest level are incomparable to the highest, how can it be said that the lower grades possesses truth? We must say, therefore, that the term truth is relative to the level on which it is found, that each grade has its own core of truth. Things are true if they agree with the essence of their own level, and untrue if they do not. They need not agree with the higher level to be considered true. In the Alter Rebbe's words, the following, the Rabbi is going to say it in his words. What the Rabbi is saying is, when you start serving God, you start from a lower grade, and then you keep growing. You're always serving God. Now, once you reach a much higher level, you look down at the way when you started. This is not considered the service of God, because compared to where you are today, yet at the time when you are at that level, it's a complete service of God. And the answer is the truth. The definition of truth here is depending on the level where you are. When you start and you are completely connected to God, even though qualitatively and quantitatively you are way, way far where you're going to be in 2 years, at that point you're complete, and therefore that's the truth. When you are higher, if you're going to go and compare to the truth of that level, that's false, that's not true. In other words, truth in this universe is relative. relative to the level of the person. And therefore, when I find myself connecting to God now, it is a complete connection, and it is to be the truth of my relationship with God. The fact that later on it may not exist has nothing to do with the moment. Here is the words of the Rebbe. Truth is the attribute of Jacob. As the verse states, you give truth to Jacob, who is called the middle bolt, which secures everything from end to end. I think I told you about the bolt that goes in the beams. Just as the middle bolt in the tabernacle secured the bolt and bolted together all the boards by passing through them all, in spiritual terms, this means that the attribute of truth passes from the highest gradation of the end levels to the end that is lower of all grades. What the Rabbi says, just like the bolt is going through every one of those beams, so is truth penetrating all levels and is appropriate for each level according to their measure. In each gradation and level, it passes through the central point of the particular level, which then becomes the point in quality that is the standard of that level's attribute of truth. Proof is now given that each grade has its own standard of truth, as it were. The attribute of truth is an unbounded inheritance. Unbounded inheritance. It has no upper limits as it extends to the highest levels, and all lower gradations and levels are as nothing compared with those superior to them. If then truth is found on all levels despite the disparity, we must conclude that the standard of truth on each level is relative to the core of that level. In support for this statement that the lower levels and grades are incomparable to the higher ones, the Alter Rebbe cites, as is known to the students of Kabbalah, the quality of the head and intellect, the highest level within the lower grades, is inferior to the soles and feet, the very lowest level within the highest grades. And the Rabbi who is going to explain, as our sages say, the feet of the Chayot, this type of angels, surpass all those levels lower than them, including the highest degree within those lower levels. The attribute of truth then is measured according to the standard of each level. We may thus conclude that the divine service of Beinoni is considered true service relative to their level, although when compared with the service of tzaddikim, it is not considered true, since it passes after prayer. And that concludes our chapter today, this time. And again, the last part of the chapter talks about the idea of truth. Truth can be said it's relative. Beinoni is not the same level of truth as a tzaddik, but it is a complete truth because that's where he's holding, and therefore that's the complete truth, and we're not expecting any more than that. Thank you very much for participating, and we hope to meet again next week. Be well, everybody. Yes.
God created all